Thank you. First off, I am going to need to ask everyone who's videoing here today to turn all those tapes into me at the end. Everyone who groaned when they heard I'd be coming back, especially my 5th graders, are going to have to flip a card this afternoon, and they know what that means. Just kidding. I also want to say that everyone has been really, really nice to me this morning. I've been walking around the halls, and as soon as I got here, people were giving me the okay sign and the thumbs up and kind of arching their eyebrow, and I even heard someone whistle at me in the hallway. And I figured it has to be the suit. What do you think about the suit, guys? Is it all right? I have never worn a suit to work before, and I actually had a couple funny comments. James Johnson asked me if I was going to be preaching today. And TJ Mayton said I was looking good and was wondering if I was going to a dance. And I have never given a sermon, nor, much to Mr. Bonnie's chagrin, have I ever been to a Powell Valley Middle School dance. But what I am, ladies and gentlemen and kids, is a military brat. My father grew up in Norton, and he graduated from John I. Burton High School and joined the United States Air Force in 1965. I was born on an Air Force base, and I grew up on 4 different Air Force bases in 2 countries on 2 continents. The soundtrack of my childhood was the howl and whine of afterburners crossing the skies and the explosion of sonic booms as planes broke the sound barrier. Like all of my friends, I spent a lot of time looking up into the skies or looking out onto the flight lines, where I marveled at the sleek F-15s or the F-4s, the sheer firepower of the A-10, which shot a shell as long as my forearm, or the Herculean strength of the C-130 or the C-5. I must admit that I often dreamed of piloting one of those planes myself. To this point in my life, though I have been accused of being spacey, especially by my wife, who's in the back of the room, I have never been to space. But being an Air Force brat, I got pretty close, sort of. From 1977 until 1982, and I know that probably sounds like a long time ago to some of you, my father was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Being a test flight center, there was always something cool going on. To this day, I vividly remember my dad taking me on a surprise trip to a hangar where, waiting to be transported back to Florida on top of a giant 747, was the Space Shuttle Enterprise. I was 7 years old at the time, and I got to walk under the wing and kick the tires. That was pretty cool. Just 3 years ago, I was actually reunited with the Enterprise. It is on static display at the National Air and Space Museum at Dulles Airport. And I was 7 years old all over again. Later on, a couple years later, actually the next year, I was 8 years old and in the 3rd grade, and my class took a field trip out to the Dry Lake Bed at Edwards Air Force Base, where I got to watch the first space shuttle landing, the Columbia, as it returned from space, the first time in the history of flight that a spaceship returned to Earth to be used again. I was in awe as I watched the Space Shuttle Columbia glide silently back down to the ground. Subsequently, I got to witness the next 2 landings, including one where I was actually on the flight line, and as the space shuttle was landing, it was literally coming directly at me. And for an 8 or 9-year-old kid, that was pretty darn cool. Now, 27 years later, I'm going to get my own taste of what those amazing astronauts experienced. And, frankly, that's pretty darn cool. I am honored to be representing Masonic Lodge 208, the Southwest Virginia Technology Council, Powell Valley Middle School, Wise County Public Schools, as a teacher astronaut trainee. When I told my wife that I had won this contest and we went home and I was showing her YouTube videos, she said, "You're crazy." I showed my 9-year-old son, John Patrick, who is a 4th grader over at Wise Primary, and he said, "Can I go with you?" I must admit that the 9-year-old in me is jumping with anticipation, and the 36-year-old in me is just a wee bit nervous. Thank you to everyone for this opportunity, and I look forward to sharing my experiences with you when I return.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Esther Bowling. She's the Executive Director of the Southwestern Virginia Technology Council. Esther.
Well, we've got quite a crowd here, don't we? Enthusiastic. This is one of the best crowds I've ever been in front of, I'll tell you that. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the Southwestern Virginia Technology Council. We cover counties, 13 counties, from Lee County to Wythe County. So that's a pretty long distance. So one of our founders is here today, and that's Jack Kennedy, and we're proud of that. I'd like to thank the Wise County Board of Supervisors. Some are here today for giving us $1,000 toward this, and we're very appreciative. I'd like to give you $1,000, but I'm sorry, I don't have one. I don't have $1,000 to share. Sorry. Now, an important part, let's put on our be quiet mouths right now. An important part of the Southwestern Virginia Technology Council's mission is to educate your ages and our ages, people even as old as me, and let me tell you, as you know, that's getting pretty up there. But our primary goal here is to excite the next generation, which is your generation, and to do this with space, which is what we're talking about right now, but to expand this through STEM skills for innovation and leadership. Now, next year, we're hoping to do this again with another teacher and maybe even a student. And that's what the exciting part is. But right now, to the important part. The winner for our Southwestern Virginia Technology ticket is Rhonda Kilgore. And she is from Scott County, and I would like to introduce her now. Rhonda.